If you've been watching this channel, you know that 2025 was like the craziest year of my life as a writer and just as a person. Yeah, let's talk about it. Hi, my name is Lindy Jung. I am a soon-to-be traditionally published science fiction and fantasy author. My debut novel, MOTHSBLOOD, comes out fall of this year because it is officially 2026. So it is MOTHSBLOOD debut year. We are not gonna think about that right now because it's still a long ways off. I do make one of these writing wrap-up videos every year. I think it's just such a good practice to reflect. A year is actually a really long time, even though 2025 felt like it went by like this. And generally speaking, these videos kind of recap what I've been doing in terms of my writing, like what I've actually written, what I've edited, and also what milestones I've hit. And 2025 in particular was just the craziest year in terms of writing accomplishments, in terms of how I was able to push myself. So I'm actually incredibly excited to reflect on this year with you guys. But I will give the caveat that this recap is going to be a little bit different in that I am full of secrets. I still have a couple of pretty big secrets that I'm holding on to and I can't share quite yet. I am excited to share those with you guys as soon as I can, but yes, some of the things that have happened this year are not going to make it into this video, but they will make it into next year's video. First things first, just a general summary of the year. Kind of the big main things that happened were that I sold my debut novel twice. I also published one short story this year. Obviously it was more of a novel focused year, so I didn't write as much short fiction as I would have liked to. I got to see some really cool artwork accompany the piece as well, and it was just super cool. And then of course the rest of the year was mostly characterized by editing and preparing for publishing and seeing my cover and working on cover design stuff, which we will be sharing that MOTHSBLOOD cover. I don't want to say soon because I don't want to make promises, but we are very close to the final covers and I'm so excited to show them to you guys. And all in all, this was definitely the first year where I felt like a real author, like a real writer. I was able to see so much of what goes into publishing a book. And even though my book hasn't come out yet, and this was a lot of prep in this year, I think that prep was so interesting and so important and has taught me so much about myself as a writer, but also how to streamline the process of drafting and kind of how to shape a book into its final form. We'll talk about that a bit more in the reflection. Without further ado, let's go into January. January was, of course, short story month. We Cast Our Eyes to the Unknowable Now was one of 9 finalists for Grist's 2020 Climate Fiction for Future Ancestors competition. We had some amazing artwork come with that piece as well, like custom artwork that drew a scene from the piece. And the way I fell into this kind of competition was so last minute. It was so random. I didn't even think that anything would come of it, but a friend of mine who is not a writer told me about the competition and I just submitted and it turned out. So really incredibly excited. Climate fiction has definitely been on my mind more and more as something I would like to write more of, as something that I enjoy reading. And so it was so cool to be part of a collection like this. Also in January, I received my editorial notes from my editor at Bloomsbury. This was my very first time doing edits with like a publishing editor, I guess. I almost said publishing professional, but I have done edits with agents before and I got to work. These were developmental edits, so they were pretty light in my opinion, story level, structural kind of changes, reanalyzing some scenes. Of course, as I was going through, I made edits based off of my own thoughts and ideas rather than just my editor's suggestions, but this was the very start of that process. And we also got to announce MOTHSBLOOD's publication through Publishers Marketplace, obviously on social media and stuff, and that was really incredibly cool just because I got to feel so supported. Like everyone came out, was so excited about the book, was so positive and lovely, and it was actually a really wonderful experience to share that news with everyone after 5 years on YouTube trying to pursue this dream. For February, I have to like check my notes. This was mostly like MOTHSBLOOD edits, but at the same time, I was also starting to get some interest from UK editors, and then in the smack middle of the month, we went to auction. My agent called an auction because we had received an offer from a UK publishing house. And she was like, I think that we're seeing enough interest from other editors in the UK to send this to auction. So we went, which is incredible. I never thought that anything I'd written would be worthy of an auction. I always thought that MOTHSBLOOD was kind of niche, kind of weird, and not the most like commercial story, but the UK seemed to really gravitate toward it. I got to go on call with a ton of different editors who were interested in the book, talk about their vision for the book, what they liked about it. So that was peppered throughout the month of February as well, leading up to the auction. Of course, ultimately we sold to Del Rey, which is an imprint of Penguin Random House, and I started working alongside both my Bloomsbury editor and my Del Rey UK editors. They kind of came into the editorial process as I had already started the MOTHSBLOOD revisions that my US editor suggested, and I was like kind of nervous about that, but my two main editors, like US and UK, communicate really frequently. Their editorial visions seem to align with each other's as well as my own, and I was able to get a ton of really wonderful suggestions from the UK side as well that I incorporated into this first kind of deb edit. Okay, March was when I officially wrapped up my MOTHSBLOOD revisions, and I turned those in to my editors. I was so excited and also so nervous. I was able to overcome that and actually submit, and I was so proud of myself. Like, I had finished my first real publishing tradpub editing process, and it went pretty smoothly, even though at the same time, by the way, through all of this, I was like actively in grad school. I was in grad school until August. So, you know, keep that in mind. It is a miracle that I got them done. And then of course, in March, I also went on my very first in-person writing retreat in New York. I met up with a bunch of wonderful friends that I actually met back in the days of like writing Twitter, the days of yore. And I had a really wonderful time in New York. I got to see so many folks. I actually got to meet my US editor in person. That was really wonderful as well too. And I also got to visit my friends who live there and are not writing people, but this was absolutely a highlight of my year. I cannot wait to go on more writing retreats. And in April, I actually finished a short story that was going to be for an anthology, but then ended up not doing that. It was a historical fantasy. I finished it. It was quite long. I think it was like just under 10,000 words, had it beta read and then put it aside. I also started kind of earnestly drafting Project Crypts, which is my adult gothic necromantasy. No, it's a necromancer fantasy. It's a gothic fantasy with necromancers with a touch of romance. I am moving away from the romantasy label because I'm realizing that that's just not nearly as large of a part of the plot as I always hope that my romance subplots will be. Something is wrong with me. I just can't write a very central romance plot. I also started planning and outlining Project Green, which is kind of like my cli-fi modern fairy tale generational family trauma story. This was just because like after editing moths, like really being serious about moths for a sustained period of several months, I wanted to have fun again. Outlining for me is always like the most fun. It's the most brainstormy. It's the most like throwing things at the wall and seeing what sticks. So I just started outlining this project because it was calling to me. I actually haven't decided if I'm going to draft Green after I've finished Crypts, but I do think that is kind of closer on the docket. We'll see. We're also going to talk about how my tastes and what I'm being drawn to write have fluctuated a lot this year. Earlier in the year, like in the gloomy, colder winter months, which March is a winter month in Wisconsin, by the way, I was definitely drawn toward darker stories, darker themes, more intense, more in line with MOTHSBLOOD. But now I think I'm more drawn to like my voicey funny projects, which I think is a very interesting development. April was kind of like having fun, drafting different things. Short story got finished and then I shelved it because I don't know what to do with it. Worked on Crypts, worked on Green, kind of just focused on grad school. In May, I actually went on my second writing retreat. My semester for grad school ended in May, so I was able to go to Kenosha, Wisconsin with some very wonderful folks off of authortube. This one was an even scarier retreat for me. Like my anxiety was off the roof. I remember driving to Kenosha in the rain and being like, is this going to be okay? At this point, I had only met Becca in person. I didn't talk to too many people like one-on-one or even in group settings online in terms of like the people coming on the retreat. It was a much larger retreat. I felt like I would kind of be the odd bird out. So I was just really, frankly, like super nervous about this retreat. But then it ended up being such a magical experience. It was what, like 3-4 days out in Kenosha. And even though it was Kenosha, which is kind of like a random place, we made that house so fun. Every single moment, like we were laughing, making jokes, singing, writing. I just had such a wonderful time with these people, and it was so magical and still is so magical and so special that so many strangers can come together and have an amazing time. And it really was transformative in a lot of ways. Also, like the day before I went on the retreat, I was like, I'm gonna go on this retreat and draft crypts. I'm gonna get so deep into this draft. I had so many aspirations to be drafting. I got my edits back for MOTHSBLOOD from my editors, so I ended up doing revisions. And this was like a lighter sort of secondary developmental edit. Okay, in June, it was my summer semester. Grad school had gotten a lot lighter. I was working on my thesis. In between that, I managed to turn in the second revision for MOTHSBLOOD, so it went pretty well. I also got editorial notes back again. This was kind of a combination line edit slash very, very light developmental edit, just kind of finishing, tying up those loose ends. And in July, that was when I turned in MOTHSBLOOD revision 3. So from January to July, I revised MOTHSBLOOD 3 times with editorial support. And then in August, I had some time to myself. I finished grad school, graduated, finished my thesis somehow. By like the seat of my pants. Oh my goodness, it was that was like one of the worst things I've ever written for college. I can admit that now. It was terrible, but I did it. In between, when I had like any semblance of sanity, I was drafting Project Crypts, and I don't really remember what stage Crypts was at this point. I think I was really kind of gearing up to submit the first 3 chapters to my agent to see if this was like ready to be a book. So I was kind of living in those first 3 chapters, living in that first act, kind of going insane. This is definitely kind of where the tide turned for Crypts, where I came up with the revenge plot and some other really central elements that hadn't existed before. So I was having fun and I was using my brain. And then in September, everything changed. I started a full-time job, my first real full-time job with like a salary and benefits and everything. And I had to adjust to this entirely new lifestyle where not only am I working like a full 40 hours a week, I am still commuting quite a ways to get to work and back every day. And I could really, really feel eating away at my time. I will say this is definitely my flop month. I was not writing very much. I continued kind of drafting Crypts, but I was like not making too much progress just because it was a huge adjustment in terms of my energy level, time. I mean, I was spending every evening just face down on the bed because I was so exhausted after work every day. But some fun stuff did happen. We had sent out MOTHSBLOOD for blurbers, which are established authors who read books that are upcoming and, you know, write a nice little sentence about them. And so I got my first couple blurbs for MOTHSBLOOD back, and they were so incredibly kind and so detailed. You know, it wasn't like great book or whatever. They were in depth. These were so touching to me and did give me that little spark of motivation that I desperately needed in September as I was in my flop era. In October, I got some secret good news. Like, actually, it happened on my birthday that I got secret good news that I cannot share. October 10th, 2025. It was the best birthday gift ever. I submitted copy edits for MOTHSBLOOD, so I think I got these kind of at the start of the month or in late September. I don't remember, but they were super quick. I did it in like 3 or 4 days. Drafted Project Crypts, and specifically I started the 10K weekend writing challenge that kind of carried through early December for me, where I was writing 10,000 words every weekend because that was the only time I had energy to write. This got me through a good chunk of Project Crypts, but a lot of it is unusable, so take from that what you will. And then in October, I also got to see some early draft covers for MOTHSBLOOD from both the US and UK. They will have different covers. I started kind of giving my very like I don't know anything about cover art design. I have like half a minor in art, and obviously I do like visual art sometimes, but I will not pretend to like know anything about covers. So my publishers were very kind to let me give my uninformed input on the covers and make tweaks accordingly. I'm just thinking of like the colors right now. The colors in these covers are gorgeous, and they are going to look so good finished, and it's so unreal that my book gets to be wrapped in this beautiful packaging, and I cannot wait to share. November, I continue to write 10,000 words a weekend against my better judgment and to my detriment. It kind of helped just because I was writing almost every weekend. Like, even if I wasn't hitting 10,000 words, I was writing significant chunks of Project Crypts. So I was making the most progress I'd made all year in terms of drafting. But then through this, I kind of realized that like draft 0.75, which is what I was calling this messy draft I was dumping words into every weekend, it like wasn't doing it for me anymore. So toward the end of the month, everything wasn't stringing together. The causality wasn't there. It just was missing so many chunks and felt so scattered that at the end of the month I called it quits and I went into draft 1, which is what I'm working on currently. In December, I got my first past pages for MOTHSBLOOD, which are the formatted kind of like the chapter titles. The fonts are all done up. There's like the little swirlies for scene breaks. I got those and I did my first proofread, which was a very interesting experience because before this, I was able to use Google Docs for everything. I was able to like do all my edits in Google Docs and just transfer it to a docx Microsoft Word format and like forget about it. But this time I had to use Adobe Acrobat, one of the Adobes, for the first time to proofread the PDF, which was all formatted and nice. It took me like 3 days to figure this out. I don't know what is in me that like new technology does this to me, but I was stumped. I could not figure out what they wanted from me. I asked some people and I figured it out eventually, but I just wanted to point that out. The past pages process, which was also kind of happening in November, I'm jumping back and forth. Whatever, this year has been a blur. That was also really interesting because I was able to give input on like, not the main font, they have like an in-house font, but things like the text messages in the book, because it takes place in the 21st century, things like the spacing. They sent me like sample pages and I was able to provide feedback on that and they would make adjustments. I thought that was so cool because it is a process to kind of get a book to look nice on the inside as well as on the outside. So I really enjoyed collaborating on that, even though it was a small part of these months. I also saw some very, very close to final covers for MOTHSBLOOD, both US and UK. And I also saw some very secret stuff that I cannot share yet because this secret is one where when I finally get to share it, which will not be for a long time, I will be screaming, I will be flailing. The most insane thing of my life. Not to be cryptic, but I do kind of enjoy being cryptic. I like having secrets. I mean, it's kind of fun. It is kind of fun to have like big publishing secrets that I cannot share yet. In December, I also got to go home to California for the holidays, which I have not done in years. I think like the last 5 years probably. I had such grand aspirations. I was on winter break and I was like, I'm going to write so much of Project Crips, and then I ended up being insanely busy the entire time. And yeah, that was 2025. That was everything that happened. Recap, reflection, I edited MOTHSBLOOD 5 times if you count proofreads, wrote 2 short stories. I wrote probably like 80,000 to 90,000 words in Project Crips across both drafts for sure. And I had a really good time navigating publishing, getting to know my editors, getting to meet people in person. I feel like I've always been someone who publishing has been such a huge goal. It's literally been my lifelong dream since I was a child, and realized like the minute I learned how books were published, which I remember it was through a school story by Andrew Clements, which I read in grade school, I wanted to do that. And so to have that culminate as everything was shifting, everything was changing, I feel like I haven't taken too many pauses to be so incredibly grateful for this opportunity, for people believing in me and MOTHSBLOOD enough to publish it, to invest all of this time and energy and finances into it, because so many people are investing time and energy and finances into it. So incredible, and I'm so grateful and so lucky, but also I do know that it is a culmination of like years of work. If I'm being honest, I never doubted that I would get here, I just didn't know how long it would take. So sometimes, because I'm such a goal-oriented person, I'm always kind of looking ahead to the next goal, and in publishing there's always a next goal, which is maybe unhealthy, but whatever. Sometimes I do need to remind myself to take a step back and be grateful and just happy that I've been able to get this far and accomplish this incredible thing. And that's not me like patting myself on the back, that's me going, wow, it is so amazing that we are finally here. And I'm so glad that I get to share it with you guys in this small way, that I get to share it with so many writing friends that I've made over the years and publishing friends, and I'm so excited for this book to come out this year. Another thing is that like going into publishing, especially in the last couple years, I feel like I'd heard nothing but horror stories, so I was super nervous. Like I really was thinking of all the worst case scenarios, like $1 advance, editor takes 20 months to get back to you on edits, cover is ugly, the cover is buns, no one will blurb my book. Like every possible thing that could go wrong was running through my head. And so far, fingers crossed, publishing has been a really wonderful experience for me. I feel like my expectations or my highest hopes have been met and also exceeded. And a lot of that is a testament to my editors at both Del Rey and Bloomsbury are 2 of the most wonderful and talented people I've ever had the pleasure of working with. They believe in my book, they believe in me, and I know that they are pulling their weight for me behind the scenes, and I am so thankful for them. I really think it has made all the difference to have not only those 2, but my like incredible agent. So I think I just am so thankful and feel so lucky that my publishing experience has been so smooth, but it has been because of these people. And I think that makes all the difference. Like, as an industry, do I believe that publishing is good to all authors? Absolutely not. I have anecdotal and statistical evidence to prove otherwise. However, if you find the right people, if you meet the right people, and there are so many passionate, wonderful people in publishing, your chances of having a good time are really high. Also, keep your expectations low. I think that was the other thing that saved me. I was like, no way in hell am I getting a $1 million advance and whatever the other thing is that famous rich authors get. I was just like, as long as this book gets published and it's not ugly, I'm fine with that. My willingness to kind of just go along for the ride definitely helped in terms of me having a positive experience, but again, that is only so far. Book hasn't come out yet. Anything could happen. Reflecting a little bit on writing, because this has been a very publishing heavy year, but I also feel I can tell that I've grown and changed as a writer. My main gripe right now, the thing that I'm struggling with so much, and the thing that I know I've improved at this year, but still could improve at, is interiority. I've always thought of myself as like a strong character writer, but that is because I think I write strong secondary characters. Getting to know Lark as a main character in MOTHSBLOOD and expressing what's kind of going on inside her head, because it is such a close third-person book, that was a really big step for me, and a lot of my editorial notes did focus on interiority and also world building, but whatever. I realized was a little bit of a weak spot for me and is something that I'm very much focusing on in terms of drafting Project Crips. And it's so interesting that someone had to kind of very nicely point that out to me before I realized, because you don't know what you don't know. So I think that's another really cool takeaway from publishing, is I have these very professional eyes on my work that are helping me kind of realize my weak points are and my strengths are in a very professional capacity. So that has kind of been the big writing theme for 2025 and going into 2026. I think also just like character development. I took Lark for granted a lot because she, for as long as I can remember, felt like a really fleshed out character. She's always kind of been like that, in other words, but Alessia, who's the main character of Project Crips, she was trickier. They're like similar outwardly, but inside they're different, and I'm still learning to navigate Alessia's character. Not taking characters for granted, doing the work to really get to know them and flesh them out on multiple levels. How do we use interiority to express that? All of that has kind of come together, especially in how I write my main characters, because if I'm going to be so honest, these two books are the first two books I've written that were very close, like character study almost kind of books, because Project Tiger was more of like action adventure. This is the first time I've written characters so closely, and it's the first time I've written characters so closely that are not like me. I am a big fan of the self-insert. Obviously these characters share traits with me. Lark in particular is very personal, but the way that she thinks and the way that she behaves, the way that that girl moves through life is so different from how I would do anything ever. It was a stretch, it was a challenge, and Alessia's the same way, where I'm like, you are so crazy. You're actually bananas, but I'm having a lot of fun getting to know them and getting to write these characters that are ultimately so different from me, even with their similarities. So yeah, big character writing year in that sense. All right, goals for 2026. Obviously, I have a couple weeks. Sorry, that just hit me and that's not good. I have about a month to finish Crips and submit it. It does not have to be perfect, and that is okay. And then I'm gonna start drafting something else. And then I'm going to stop thinking about it, submit it, and draft something else. I don't know what yet, but it's going to be something else. My pie in the sky goal this year is to actually finish 2 drafts, because I think the next thing I'm going to write is going to be lighthearted. I've written 2 very heavy books in a row, and I'm kind of feeling the like emotional fatigue of that. I do like writing in dark spaces. I do like writing darker work, but my rom-com set in Los Angeles and my kooky demon hunter book are both calling to me right now, and it's just a matter of if I want to stay in the speculative space or write the rom-com and try to sell it, because that could be published in the same year as a fantasy. And I think both of those will be a lot like quicker to draft, not only because their plots are really fleshed out, but because that like funny voice, that modern funny voice I found comes a lot more naturally to me than this sort of, I don't want to say antiquated, but like more literary leaning, storied, you know it when you see it, like the fancy writing. I have fancy writing and I have funny writing. So I kind of want to do funny writing. That goes a lot faster for me, especially in drafting, because it's just the way I talk. So I might write a funny book this year. We'll see. We'll see. And also, of course, 2026 is my debut year. How I'm feeling right now is that it's far enough away that I don't have to worry about it. When I think about it too deeply, I get stressed, but I have other things to worry about. I have other things on my plate. I think my main goal in terms of like publishing goals is to stay sane. I do want to keep trying to establish this as a career. I don't want to be a one-off or two-off writer or anything like that. I want to keep writing books and also writing a variety of things so that it stays interesting. I think also a big key theme this year is going to be balancing my full-time job and writing professionally. They're both incredibly demanding just in terms of time and energy and like my brain cells, if I'm being honest. Like I feel like I've gotten dumber just because I use up all of my brain capacity at work, and now when I write, I'm like, oh, there's nothing left in here to actually do stuff. Finding that balance, it's just gotta happen. Like I can't keep writing 10,000 words every weekend. I'm going to go insane. The other thing is that I am very fortunate in that I have the type of job where I get extended periods of time off. So summer is probably going to be a really heavy writing time for me. But I think just like finding pockets of time, 30 minutes, an hour after work to write while still maintaining the responsibilities of my job is going to be something that I just have to figure out if I want to keep doing this. It's not sustainable to do what I've been doing, which is like bursts of writing. The writing I'm producing is not good. When I was student teaching 40 hours a week, I was able to write at least 30 minutes to an hour every single day, or at least revise because I was in revision mode. And that made such a huge difference because that consistency, that habit building, and also just spending little chunks of time instead of long chunks of time is just better for my writing. So I want to find that groove again. I'm gonna start tomorrow, so I'll let you know how it goes. And I guess my final resolution is just trying not to be too invested in how MOTHSBLOOD performs in terms of how much it sells or how much people like it or the Goodreads rating. I don't care. I don't want to care. I will care a little bit, but I don't want to care. I just want to enjoy debut year because you only debut once. I want to have fun. I want to do a launch event. I want to like have a positive experience. And if I have to filter people out in order to do that, I will, because some of these folks on Goodreads are haters and that is okay. But yeah, you only debut once, like I said, and it's a big accomplishment and I want to celebrate. So this is going to be a party year, also a working year, but whatever. And we are going to have a wonderful time. All right, that is the video. If you enjoyed it, you know what to do. If you have any 2026 writing resolutions or goals, feel free to share them in the comments below. I want to know what you guys are up to this year because I'm nosy. If you want to see more videos about my writing, the publishing process, or other random miscellaneous things about writing, then you can go ahead and subscribe. I don't know when I upload. I try to upload every 2 weeks. That is the video. Thank you so much for watching. Have a wonderful new year, and I will see you next time.